All right, I'm going to call the planning board meeting for Wednesday, May 16th, 2018 to order at 7:01. Have a roll call, please.
Let's see, Anthony Renzi, are you here?
Yes.
Jeff Sheldon, are you here?
I'm here.
Councilor Vassil, are you here? Present. Rick Sparks, are you here?
Here.
Mike Carpenter, are you
Here.
Yep. Chair Joe Carey, are you here?
Here.
Also present are our solicitor Joanna Kelly, our attorney, our planner, Jennifer Siciliano, and town officials Gordon Rogers and Denise DeFranco, and public present would be Sandy. Who done this?
Just you?
And
All right, I would accept the motion for approval of minutes for May 2nd.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes for May 2nd.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. Okay, discussion?
Yes. If anybody, mine is the last item. So if anybody has anything else before that,
yes,
go ahead.
okay, on page 1, 2, 3, okay, third paragraph down, it says Kathleen Brackett of 10A Hartford Pike.
Yes.
Okay, and then it said it was concerned the project drains right behind her house, which is on only, I think that's meant to be 3/4 of an acre.
Yes, I think you're right.
Okay. As opposed to.
Yeah, I remember her saying. Yes,
Yes.
small, yeah.
Yeah. And then 2, 3 paragraphs below that, the first name is Denise Dione. And it says, third line down, Mr. Carey said there are 3 on Theodore Foster Road, 3 solar things, and that should be 2,
2.
I believe.
Yes.
Okay, and then, and then it says 1 on Briggs Road. I think that's proposed.
Yes.
Should that be there? Or, yes. Have we heard that at all?
I think it was mentioned that there was a proposed one, so
Okay.
if you wanted to make sure that it says proposed.
Okay, so 1 proposed on Briggs Road. Okay. That's it.
Any further discussion?
Yep. Mr. Rogers addressed, when he addressed the planning board, on issues that he thinks are important. They're important, but they're way down the line having to do with zoning. After you have new members of the board that have new ideas of how to rezone some areas to entice a revenue stream, and after you do the big issues, you work on the small things. Working backwards isn't going to help anything. And what's important to members of, some of the members of this board is cleaning up Route 6. And Mr. Rogers has been working directly against that. So, and I have, that's it.
What
So-
should be in the minutes?
Yeah, that's what we're discussing the minutes, so.
Well, if you come here and make statements that, one, aren't true, this is an independent board. Mr. Rogers came here as a council member and a citizen, okay? So, trying to separate himself out while he's talking about septic systems that he puts in, all right? I talked to the attorney about this, there's a fine line, I'm wrong, but this is an independent board, and I want to have this board move forward with things that are important to the members of the board, not individual members of the council. Right? That's what I have to say about the minutes as they were addressed. Thank you.
Ron, did you want something changed?
I think there should be, my objection,
Fallacy.
Did you object?
I object to one, the way it's written, because it's written, the way it's written, and the way it's in the tape, and us having to sit here and listen to that Michael was so offended he stood up the whole time, or half the time. I'm not making any comments about that. So, if people here, he stood in front of us with a piece of paper and drew scribbly lines on it. Did anybody know that, understand or know what that presentation was about?
Well, I understand what you're saying.
I want it not to happen again.
Right. As far as the minute, I know we've been getting away from putting too much discussion in the minutes because, you know, a lot of people feel that the minutes were a little overdone. So we don't put everything that's said, obviously, you know.
Yeah, no.
Hey, it's here,
Okay.
You know, and I agree, you know, there were some things that, you know, were a little.
I don't think it should be lightly passed over.
No,
If
no,
you want
no.
to say one thing, I want to.
But if you wanted to add a sentence or something.
No,
to the
I
minutes
don't think
and
that-
address that, we can do that.
I think that people should refer back to the tape for what was really said.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Is there any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Passes 7-0. Okay. Did we have any correspondence this evening?
Richard had sent me something, but he's gonna discuss it as an agenda item.
For the zoning?
Yes. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. We have board members' reports, land trust, do you have anything, Mike?
We're doing 2 site walks tomorrow on properties and during the land trust meeting, the last land trust meeting again. We basically have worked continually toward this website, you know, updating it and making it more accurate. So, that's about it.
Michael.
Have more information on it.
What sites are you walking?
2 proposed sites, one on Shippey Schoolhouse Road, I believe it's called the Apollo property, and there's another one out on Maple Rock Road.
Okay.
Excuse me, may I ask? May I ask? Michael, have you ever mentioned to the land trust that they may be taking too much land off the tax rolls?
Yeah, that's a real concern.
By who?
Of the land trust. Okay, they know they have a lot of property, and they were trying to make it more accessible to the town folks, to try to figure out ways to generate income. We talked about, you know, this sounds like silly things, but they're trying to sell more hay, trying to sell more witch hazel, trying to get people interested in beekeeping, trying to make the land more productive in terms of forest management plans. Management plans have to be done, and then we're working on the management plans with the hope that we would be able to, you know, gain some revenue from proper forest management. If we actually had Bobby Thurber come in, now that you mentioned it, at the last meeting, and give us a pretty black and white picture from a commercial standpoint, of what kind of management plans can be developed.
Okay,
How much
where does that
cost.
money go when it's raised?
That revenue should go back
charter, I don't believe that's true.
Well, I think the intent is to make that money available, and how the council wishes to use it, I'm sure they can do pretty much what they want with it.
I'm gonna tell you, Michael, that I was on the land trust twice. In order for the land trust to give money or land, it has to first be voted on by the board, brought to the council, and put on a town financial meeting.
I'm sure that's the case.
Okay,
But,
so,
I guess I can't really answer that question, because we don't have any money yet. But the movement on the trust, especially having Bobby Thurber there, who's in town, who's a professional guy, runs a business. I think it was very positive on the part of the land trust, simply because those management plans are important to the town, they're important to the state. Our cooperation with the other agencies that own property, in Foster, the Nature Conservatory, the Department of Environmental Management, they want to help us maybe put a bridge in, maybe gain access to some of their property for hunting. I mean, we did have the hunting last year, that was pretty well received. So if we can do a better forest management plan, we can have maybe some riding trails.
do they have, may I ask this, because you're not a trustee and you may not know. Do they have a plan of what they're really trying to accomplish in the end? Or is it just
I think it's
take land off the tax rolls?
No, it's a different attitude, simply because of the fact that the demands on the land trust have increased in terms of accountability because of the town situation. So, they're trying to address these issues. Like we've had, like I said, the hunting,
Okay, all right.
and.
All right, thank you.
So it's going along, it's a slow process.
Yeah, well, it is a slow process, and
Well-
meanwhile, more land comes off the tax rolls.
Well, I think that, the land trust does a lot more for the community than other entities that own property in this town that are off the tax roll, like the Nature Conservancy. And, they have access to their properties for the public and trails, and I think, at least the citizens get to use it, and it does preserve open space, and I think people appreciate their hard work. I think the question has been about, how much is off the tax rolls by the land trust, and I think that question is probably best asked by the tax assessor.
I can tell you that.
To have them, if you do a report to the, the board, if you want to, get an exact number of the properties and, how much in, value is off the tax rolls because of the land trust. We
Yeah,
probably do an assessment.
I had a lengthy conversation with Kelly Russ, and she says the land trust value is approximately $2 million in the town, and it equates to a loss of revenue of about $45,000 a year.
I would say though, also, since, keeps coming up, and it's kind of tough, but I think, many of the people, their properties, many of us own large properties in Foster. And most of us that have areas of our land that isn't houses or anything, we do use different ways of reducing our taxes through the farm, forest, and open space. So I think a lot of these properties before the land trust had them probably were in that program, because they were large areas, and I'm sure them people were already.
I'm gonna address that when we get to the maps. The issue is, it's hard to have three different plans. The plans we're working on, the plans the land trust is working on, and the plans the council is working on. It's a wonderful thing that 12 people walk on these properties once a year, okay? I live down the ocean, and I see 100 people walk by my house today in a day in a little circle, okay? I don't see anybody walking on anything in Foster, except maybe their own backyard. So I don't know what this, in the long run, what we're trying to accomplish. And I think the council or this planning board ought to have a conversation with the land trust at some time. Sorry to take the board's time with this.
Do you have anything on conservation?
Jeff had something.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry. Did you want?
The guy forgets all the time.
You
You're
raise
so
your hand.
quiet over there, you know?
He raised his hand.
When I raise my hand, that's not what I'm supposed to do, I'm supposed to butt in.
I'm sorry.
But everything that Mike mentioned, I mean, a lot of that's positive stuff for the land trust, I mean, if they raise their own money. I know that, I looked at the numbers for land trust from the town council, and I think it was 2,000. Anybody remember that for the financial town meeting?
2 million.
Oh, they mean.
$2,000 operating budget, zeroed out.
Yeah. but they-
So, I mean, even if they wanted to pay their own operating budget, everything that Mike mentioned, and you've talked about it before, some of that stuff you mentioned before, none of that is something that the town will gain from. If he says that they're gonna give money to the town, I mean, that'd be great, but I can't see the members of the land trust not wanting to take advantage of the money that they bring on their own. Maybe, I don't know, but nothing in that is stuff that the town will make a dollar on, okay? And he just, Mr. Sparks just said that the amount of taxes it would derive is 45,000.
That we would derive.
That we would derive from $2 million worth of property. Doesn't that strike you as a low number? I mean, $2 million of property in a town that needs money and 45,000 for $2 million?
You gotta know the
I
estimate.
think, you know, to really get the answer to that question, we need more accurate numbers, because open space is value, you know, I mean, acreage, you know, once you get to your housing lot, and
Yeah, you gotta know
everything
the-
over that, the process of, on a large piece of land, the value isn't very high, so, you know, you really gotta really look at it more in depth and really get good numbers. I think if we can get some numbers from the tax assessor, probably, because that's what we get true answers on,
Can we generate a note to the tax
yeah,
assessor?
that's what I
And not just, by the way, the land trust, but the conservation, do they have land? They have land in Gloucester, right?
No, they just oversee. As far as the land trust is self-funded, the money that is done at the financial town meeting is just a procedural thing.
The land trust is not self-funded, that's incorrect.
Yes, they are.
That money that they get is in their account. The money, it is a procedural amendment to the charter.
Correct.
That has to be done at the meeting, and it's only a formality. That money is not out of our operating.
But it is money that comes to the town, and then
It's through the tax.
they've said
tax
it.
stamps, right.
I think we're getting a little.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, that's what I think, so
Yeah.
that's what I was trying to, but Jeff did want to speak, so I want to go there. But I think we need to go a different way. I think the questions seem to be the same at every meeting. I think that we got to try a different avenue to answer it. It's something that got to be consistent about.
I think if I ask the questions, enough, something will happen.
Would we like to ask someone from the land trust to come and talk to the planning board about what their plan is?
We could possibly do
I think it's more of the council's business. They're in charge.
that. The land trust is sort of the old thing, isn't it?
Okay,
I just got a comment on that. They could be generating revenue for timber management plans on those properties. I mean, so there is a real possibility of making some money.
And if they're raising enough money on their own, whatever money that comes into the town, then goes to the town first before it's sent here, then the land trust.
Yeah, it's gonna be figured out.
I don't know how much that is, and I don't know if it's enough to help, but at this point in time, if they're gonna raise money on their own and they're successful at it, Mike would have that answer more than me. But if they're successful at it, maybe the town needs a little bit more right now.
Right. We're gonna move on to the conservation.
Yeah, no change since the last meeting, the last planning board meeting, but the Conservation Commission is meeting next Monday night, and I plan on attending. So I can update you at the next planning board meeting.
All right, we have, the next thing is the approval of the decision for COG Solar from the last meeting.
so moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Second by Jeff. Any discussion on the motion?
Is this the one on Route 101?
This one we did, yeah.
Yeah.
Last week, last meeting, yeah. It's just the final approval with the added
I have
language.
I'd like some discussion.
Okay. Go ahead.
I was very surprised at that meeting. He mentioned bringing in a rock processor.
So the discussion should just be limited to as far as like you do with the minutes. If there's an issue with the decision, it's just on for approval of the written decision.
Say that again?
It's on for approval of the written decision, the actual written form. Just like we approved the minutes from the last meeting,
Yeah.
you approve the written decision. So if there's something in that decision.
So all we're approving here is a letter that we're.
We're approving the decision that we made at the last meeting, right? That discussion.
Well, you're approving the written form of the decision.
Right, the final.
Okay.
But yeah, it's, when you have a motion, you have discussion on the motion, so it's the content of the motion, and the motion is on this, so the discussion should be based on it.
So that means I can ask or I can't.
Depends on what you're gonna ask.
If
You're gonna ask them about
that. It's not in the decision, so I don't think you can.
It's just limited to, does the decision accurately reflect the vote?
That's it, Jeff.
There's a basic,
Wait till.
So
wait,
I can't.
wait.
no.
But they're coming back, so.
Wait.
All right, so any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Sorry.
You guys vote?
And
Yeah.
All right. All right, we have, excuse me?
Oh, I was just gonna say the maps are next.
Yes, the comprehensive plan maps, right? You wanna-
So, yeah, I'll explain what, so I have a list of maps needed for the comprehensive plan. So the state has to approve the comprehensive plan once we're done, and they provide a list of maps. Not a list, but throughout their handbooks about each section. So what I did is I made a list of all the different maps we need. And Laura Sparks had provided, these are the maps she provided. So there are still some things that need to be done, but I made this list for us and for her so that she can make more maps. So I wanted to show you what has been done so far. Well, you can read there's a lot of maps required, and there's very particular items. I have to say that one of the most important maps, which the state will be looking at, is a thing called FLUM, which is, I can't see it, but it's basically oh, here it is. It's the future land use map. So it's what not exactly what is going on now, but what you want in the future. And then you have to say, zoning-wise, how we're going to change that, if there is a zoning issue. So that has not been produced yet, and just wanted to put that on the radar. I think she was working on it.
Okay.
She was working on it, but that's going to be something.
How many more maps are there?
There's a lot of maps. There's like 7 here that she gave, but I have to make sure that everything is on it.
Would it be all right if I asked you what the maps are going to be?
Yes, well, basically natural resources, recreation, agriculture, water supply, historic and cultural resources, community services and facilities, I think she has that. Flood maps, which I don't think we have a separate flood map. Transportation networks, which is just the roads. The land use map. And she provided the land use map, but this is probably more categories than you need for the land use map. Probably, the state will probably have you consolidate some of, for instance, the residential, and things like that. And that's pretty much, that's a lot, but that's it.
Is it like maybe 95% done or something? Or?
I would say 8.
Okay. I thought it was okay. I hope she still talks to me after.
Well, definitely made a lot of progress. I'm glad to see this done, because this
So
is
so she came in and she's very knowledgeable. This is what she does all the time is maps. So now that I've been working with her, we can refine. So that's kind of why we're here, to show you what she's done and then how we can refine it.
Beautiful work. Question I have here, is these maps for your comprehensive plan that somewhere along the line?
Yes.
These maps don't help to change anything on Route 6?
We could probably, yes, we're gonna make the comprehensive plan maps, but I can ask her, and I want to, about Route 6. We can make more detailed.
What I would like to have on Route 6 is the actual plot maps of the, like when you go into to look up plot and
Like the assessor maps.
so I can see, so we can see the acreage and the parcel, what it is, and then maybe an overlay can see what's water, what is wetlands on that overlay and so forth and so on, so we can go and move forward to do what we gotta do. I mean, this is good, but I'm not a geologist and I
Well,
wouldn't.
These are for the comprehensive plan.
These are-
We are gonna discuss that with the zoning.
We're on maps now, Joe, so I figured I'd throw in
Yeah.
the maps.
Yeah, that's a different thing, but this is required for the comprehensive plan, these maps. Are required. It's one of the things that really are holding us up on the comp plan being completed. And we did get a quote to have it done. It was like $30,000 to have a consultant do these maps. So we saved a lot of money by Laura working with the planner and getting these done. It's quite a large
And so,
undertaking.
this is just so that Anthony knows, when we redid the zoning previously for Route 6, we did have somewhere there is or was maps which delineated every parcel along Route 6 from Connecticut to Situate.
That's what I.
And so they have been there and showed which lots were where, et cetera, and so it has been done once and they ought to be somewhere, but please would hope.
Yeah. The maps in the vault, the plat maps in the vault are pretty accurate in that they show wetlands. I don't know when they were shown, but they do show that certain parcels have designated wetlands on. One of the biggest problems is trying to tie current lots, plats and lots with what's on them. I mean, we have in our packets that we got from the planner, it shows the commercial property on Route 6. And those, I mean, it's hard to determine whether any of those plats are the ones that are already occupied by somebody or something. And it doesn't really show which ones are empty. And you have to spend a lot of time in the vault even, and I have, but there's an awful lot of lots there that some of them are so tiny, you can't tell what's on them.
Okay, could I fix this? The maps, these maps are the comprehensive.
For the comprehensive.
Okay, but maps. There needs to be maps. The first map needs to be land, water, land. The second, after that, all these things need to be on, I'm going to use the word Mar, but I'm probably wrong, a clear plastic map that you overlay, so the plots overlay onto land. Then the houses overlay onto plots. or wetlands overlays onto lots. And you take one off and you put one on. The idea of future usage, okay? If there's a 50-foot frontage and 100 acres behind, that's a residential compound. So the future potential use of that is 5 houses, 2 and 3. That's the information the planning board needs. That's the information the council needs. The state needs, but the town needs a whole different set of maps. So if you're looking for something, you have the basic and you take on the thing, like where's the map, not in the comprehensive plan, but where's the map that says the land that isn't taxable? Where's the map that says the land that's in forest and, what's that, the farm, the tree thing, okay? Tree farms. How does the council figure out what future tax revenue could possibly be, or future expenses could be on houses that are built? So I don't know what we were gonna get for 30,000, but we need to spend some money to get the maps the planner needs and the council needs to do their future work, and this planning board. And I've seen those kind of maps, I know I've seen them, where the basic map is there, and then you want to know where the cemeteries are, and you go like this. Boom!
They
There's
probably
the
do it
cemetery.
electronically now.
Okay, all right, so it's there, but I can tell you this, and this is not about your daughter. I know where there's one cemetery and who knows other features that aren't representative. And the only way we're gonna find that out is to somehow publish these maps to the citizens. Gordon probably knows where there's cemeteries that aren't on this map. So citizens can write back and say, oh, Christ, you missed the cemetery. There's a cemetery across the street from my house that isn't on here. Has nothing to do with your...
No, just so you understand, my daughter didn't produce the data.
Oh, I know, no.
She produces the maps from the data.
I realize that.
Someone else prepared the
And
data.
the only way we're gonna get the data is to send them out to get new information, because the information that we have now is not presently accurate in some cases.
You're right, you're gonna have to hire someone to
Or
prepare
use,
special use.
All right,
okay, enough.
so, as far as the maps go, at least for the comprehensive plan, I believe, the maps are gonna show, they do show open space, I think, on one of the maps.
Yes,
And
they
they're
do.
gonna show land trust properties on one of the maps.
They usually want you to show what is protected open space, and what isn't. It doesn't get into non-taxable, but.
No, but it will
it's
show open
show
space.
In this town, that's big money. That's important stuff.
Are these are final?
They are not final. I kind of wanted to bring them to you because we've been talking about them, but how about if the next time I bring them back, they'll be final and I'll try to get them all done with Laura.
I think that Mr. Sparks' daughter has done a great job. One of the things I'd like to point out though is that I'm looking at one here that says community facilities, and it says that the town hall is on Mount Hygeia Road, and Danielson Pike is called the Grand Army Highway, and none of the unimproved roads are on there.
None of what?
Unimproved roads. Roads that
Oh,
are
it's
there on
just-
paper, but there's no actual road there.
Then
Like
probably-
Howard Hill, the gap in Howard Hill Road, there's a gap on it that shows here, but it doesn't. But like Tom Woods Road isn't. I don't know where else is missing, but obviously some of that data is missing. I'm presuming that a lot of this information was drawn off older maps.
Yes, I think that maybe I should talk to the DPW director. He probably knows where all the roads are. And I'm thinking, like the historic cemeteries, maybe the historic,
Preservation.
preservation, so that I think that that's probably a better thing.
There's, Jennifer, in places that, that we are familiar, should we give feedback, like come into town
Individually,
hall
yes,
and give
yes.
feedback?
Because that
Not
might
now,
be, right,
but
that would be fine.
there are a
Like say
couple.
something is, make sure something is there that's not.
I'm not sure if you caught that, but what Jennifer says is if you are aware of things that aren't accurate, then probably the best thing to do is to go into town hall and make sure Jennifer is aware of it so she can communicate that with Laura. Who's, thank you, Laura.
Again,
I don't
one
know.
thing, that's the 5 of us, 7 of us here. There's hundreds of people in this town that know.
Right.
She's generating this from the Rhode Island GIS
Yes.
data. It's not, and to the extent that it's not complete and not perfect, then the data probably doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I don't know what the remedy for that is.
Well, if you tell me about it, she can definitely put it on there. And maybe we can even update the state.
No, these maps are created from our GIS system in town.
So I have a GIS on my computer, and so obviously she does, and you can download files that are from the state that cover the whole state. So they have all this information there. So we have to sort of correct it if we need.
Are these accessible by us?
No, you have to have ArcGIS, which costs like $1,400 or something like that. I think maybe they have maps, but not this much
Google has
data. Google has
Google Earth
maps.
has a lot of that stuff.
No,
They're no more right than anybody else.
the procedure with the comprehensive plan is, it does require us to have public input on the comp plan before it goes before the council when planning board for a joint public hearing, I believe. Now,
Right,
the
so-
maps will be included in that, so
People can have
anybody
time
from
to
the
comment.
public can look at these maps if they so wish during that period.
But essentially, once we're in the
to make
final
comment. Right.
draft.
But previous to that public hearing, I believe there's a public comment for the draft, the
Yeah.
first draft of the.
So, yeah, so people
Plan,
can
which
say that
includes
you're
the maps.
missing something.
Right, so if anybody from the public would have a chance to view these maps. Denise, did you have?
No, you answered it, thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay, is there anything further on the maps for the comprehensive plan? Alan, did you have something additional?
No, we covered it actually. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, well, I'm just really happy to see progress because this has been a long endeavor. Yeah, I think this come to an end at the end of this year, I'm hoping. We can pray. Okay, moving on. The next item on the agenda is the commercial zone on Route 6. I was gonna let the planner, Jennifer, would just give us a little oversight
Sure.
on the process.
Sure. I was talking to Joe earlier, and I thought that it would be good for me to go over some things, and then maybe we can go one by one and say how we think about the rezoning. So,
Without maps of the parcels, we're gonna somehow pick this out of the air.
Well, what?
yeah, I haven't spoken yet.
All right.
She's gonna go over some points so we can, kind of make this process, so we can accomplish something.
So I'm gonna talk a little bit about my professional experience in rural economic development, just a little bit. Goals and vision for economic development. Is zoning really the problem? Route 6, the process of rezoning, if we want to do that. The options of Route 101 and 102, and things that Foster can do after we have assessed the zoning. So I have worked, just to give you a little background, I've done a lot of economic development plans, and I in particular did one in Ashby, Mass, which is a community of 3,000 people, so it's pretty similar. And the thing about economic development in a small town is a lot of times you have to think out of the box. So one of the things we did was ask the community what they'd like to see. They mentioned like a coffee shop or a bank. They also talked about tourism, having a festival, bringing people in. And actually, they did mention bringing a sewer in, just for the town center.
Who's that? Ashby, Mass?
Ashby, Mass. Yeah, the community there.
Oh, that's what.
That's what I'm just saying, yes. So I also want to mention I worked in Charlestown, and I did a project for them. They have the Ninigrit festivals, and they wanted to know, the planning board wanted to know if the festivals were affecting the local businesses. So we did a survey of the local businesses. We had a list from the town clerk of all the businesses. We surveyed them, and then I had telephone interviews and some in-person interviews, and we actually found out that the businesses do well. Except for the seafood festival, the restaurants don't do well then. But it was interesting because a lot of people were saying, oh, it's good for the town, oh, it's bad for the town. But we found out what was really going on. So goals and action items. Anything we want to do should be followed along with the goals and action items. So I handed out what we have right now, which is 2003 comprehensive plan. That's what we're going by until we officially put the new one in. But I did include the draft new one. So you probably want to look at the action items and goals. So I just want to say we probably don't agree on everything that you should do, but maybe you want to look at those things where you agree, and those things we can go forward with for economic development. The process of zoning, the first thing you do is you assess parcels. So having a list of parcels, which I started to collect, the size, the frontage, the wetland overlays, which is all things we've talked about here already. And it would be good to have this information for a couple to look at it to see if the zoning is the issue and the problem, but also for marketing the property and for people that are looking for particular types of property.
Jennifer, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Can I just back you up one moment?
Sure.
You said when you're assessing the parcels, you assess it for size,
Frontage,
frontage?
wetlands.
Okay, thank you.
We could also, this is an option, call or talk to some of the businesses on Route 6.
Try that.
And find out what are the issues or the problems. Someone else today had a good idea, which was asking businesses in like Chepachet or something that opened recently in the last few years, why did they go there? Why didn't they go to Foster? And maybe start getting some real information from that. So those are the things that we need to do for assessing the property to see if zoning is really the issue. You do have the option of looking at Route 101 or 102, but you have to be very careful in the process. The roads are different. There's different traffic patterns and types of roads. I mean, we would have to do the same process of getting all the parcels and looking at them in particular. I mean, we could do that. That's up to you.
So let me ask you.
I'm not done yet. I'm almost done.
Okay.
Almost done. Almost done. Things we can do in addition to those is looking at the use table for zoning. For instance, bed and breakfast, you need a special use permit. In agriculture, maybe that's something you want to open up, that you don't want special permit. I had a couple looking for a wedding venue on Route 6, and there were some issues with that, so it would be interesting to look at the zoning. You just did the marijuana ordinance, which will be sent to the town council, but that is definitely something I've been getting multiple calls about, is to be cultivating marijuana. You might want to do tourism. I could talk to Bob Billington, Blackstone River Valley Tourism Council. I mean, he brings a lot of people to the Blackstone Valley, and it really takes effort. He promoted the Bikeway, and he has the Explorer that comes, so these might be things that Foster wants to do, some additional festivals or something. Also, Farm Fresh Rhode Island is doing a lot with farmers and young farmers and bringing them maybe to Foster. There's other things, I mean, so you really have to envision what you want. Local Chamber of Commerce, I looked at the website, and they have Foster listed, and when I went on the link, it doesn't even work. So I mean, these are things that we can target, like maybe work with the Chamber of Commerce, work with tourism. Like, I think these are things that have been missing. I recently got a statewide bike plan, and we just a little bit is in it, and I would think that having a bike, just signs that say this is a bikeway on Route 6 would be nice. There's enough shoulder width. And I think that people look for, like, where can I bike? I know it's like people are going pretty fast, but
You travel Route 6?
I've gone on Route 6.
Hope you get it then.
Well, let's
It's just an
Yes.
example. It's
That's
just
the
an
truth.
example.
So, I mean, these things are rural ideas, that you can go in that direction and keep Foster rural, but it takes a lot of work to do those things, and maybe we can get people involved in doing some of that work. There is another alternative. I know that people have talked about industrial parks and really bringing in corporate kind of things. And I think that maybe I could call Scott Gibbs, who runs the executive park at CVS, and see if he has any insight. He knows what the demand is to tell you if there's really demand for it. And I think that would be an interesting thing too. So I made a call.
Would you say that one more time, of CVS?
CVS,
To
yes.
see if they would be interested.
Not if they would be interested, but he runs that, and he also does economic development consulting on the side. So he helps towns with their more for that corporate, industrial. He knows those kinds of things where that's not really my forte. I don't know all the market demands of real estate, commercial real estate in the
What's his
region.
name?
Scott Gibbs.
Scott,
That's it.
He's one of their VPs up there.
So how did you want to go down the line?
I think it would be good if each one of you, maybe Helen could read her, after Michael, Helen could read her, the thing that you wrote, and et cetera. Have anything to say? You have first. Put you under the trigger.
Did you
Just go in it, just
Jennifer
go in line.
was suggesting that we just go in order,
oh, yeah, it's,
ideas for.
I just think we did a good effort to, it's been a while since the zoning change. I think and just to keep it objective, black and white, as a planning board, we should look at what worked, what didn't work. We should just pretty logically talk to the people who have successful businesses in Boston that do well and get input from them. And we should talk to people who have businesses in Foster that are struggling and get input from them. And that would help. Well, kind of goes along with what you said, and perhaps even from some surrounding rural communities, Coventry, Situate, obviously Gloucester, just, hey, how are you guys doing, and what's supposed to be successful, what works best for you?
May I ask?
No, you
Before we-
wait your turn.
Okay.
We're each gonna speak and then
Okay.
we'll have discussion.
So it should be kept, we should try to keep the discussion objective. And I think when you're trying to make something better, the focus point should be on what you have to work with, which we covered already, what worked, come up with something good.
Thank you, Mike. Val, do you have anything
Jennifer was nice enough to suggest that I just share the history, a little bit of where we've come from. Some people are painfully aware of it, but I don't think all of us are. So I just wrote a little bit up. So it, before we had the general business mixed-use zoning at all, what there was a 200, I believe it was 200-foot strip.
Four.
I think it was 400.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
You think so? Okay, 400-foot strip on either side of Route 6 from the Connecticut border to the Situate border. And it did not take into account anything. That was just what, the way that it was zoned when zoning came into effect in 1969, I believe it was. And the feeling was that it wasn't appropriate because for many reasons, but two of the reasons were that it didn't take into account the individual pieces of property, and therefore we had all those maps which showed each individual lot on Route 6 and what was there now currently. And basically it set up the zones. So a lot of the lots had two different zones. It basically dictated strip development along that corridor, whether it was appropriate or not. In many parts there were already residences, and in many parts there was and still is standing water, or else there was very bad visibility for entering and exiting onto the highway. We tried to rezone to nodes because that was what we were advised was a safer kind of development that allowed for the whole lot to be developed so that drive-in shopping areas could be developed with numerous stores and parking, the way that you see in other communities. We did have consultants for various parts of this. We worked with the planner, with the town council, and with other town boards. We spent many hours, weekend workshops, etc. We picked areas basically where there was already development or seemed the safest, driest, and most promising. There was an appeal / review period of at least a year after the zoning was changed. It's the only zoning change except for the residential compound that I can remember taking place really of any significance since I've been involved. Anne and Mike Valentine were planning to do that kind of development at the corner of Route 6 and 94, but they sort of they couldn't wait for long enough to for the zoning. I think that the idea that I think Vaughn proposed, or Anthony, somebody proposed, that we consider also Route 101 and 102 to see if there are appropriate places. But there was not opposition to commercial development. It's just that the planning board isn't the developer. We have been willing to work with interested parties. At that time that the general business mixed-use thing was being developed, zone was being developed, we actually were trying to solicit interest from other communities. We had consultants from the state and from, I think, Blackstone River corridor, trying to sort of get other people interested and involved. An example of a community that took a strip zone and made it into nodes is Barrington. And we tried to use their model to some degree. And I just said the problem has always been finding somebody who wants to do something. So that was my 2 cents.
Yeah. It seems, I tried to write out and put some of my thoughts on paper. I'm not going to hit everything, but I'll hit a few things. But it seems like we didn't want to have strip zoning back then, and that's why we went to this revised plan. And now we've gone full circle. We're coming right back to the strip zoning, except in this case it's 2,000 feet instead of 400.
Don't use my 2,000 feet. I was incorrect in saying that, so please, my 2,000 feet is, I just threw it out.
Okay, all right. Well, that's good to know.
I was completely wrong. This is Anthony's proposed, let him speak to it.
Rick? Okay, thanks for the correction.
Sorry,
That's
no.
that's good, that's fine. It's constructive. But I'm not sure that's what the people of Boston want, so that's a concern. I have concerns and I have questions. One of the questions I have is what kind of economic development, what types of businesses are going to be interested, what's it going to do to the tax base? Now, I've roughly calculated that, in fact, Kelly told me that the tax base of the town, well, the value of all this property is $574 million. In order to generate any kind of significant impact to the tax rate, you're going to have to translate that into something like $50 million of increased value of properties. And that would make it a savings of about $500 for your average taxpayer. So, and unless, I mean, I don't know what the vision is with all of this, and I'm not sure that the numbers justify it. I mean, if you generate $20 million increase in assessed value, you save the average taxpayer $224 a year. I don't know if it's worth what it will do to the town. I don't know if it's worth doing it for those kind of savings. I mean, I don't think they really see $200 as significant savings. The taxes are definitely high. It's a concern, and there's a number of reasons for that. The elderly tax freeze is over $100 million of the tax base in Foster. So you get all those credits, historical credits, like my friend George Newman. He's 93, and he's paying the same rate of tax as he did when he was 65, so almost 30 years ago. He might be paying $1,000. So you have all these things that are going to be grandfathered out as the elderly tax freeze has been revised, and that's going to tend to equalize taxes. And we have the same impact from open space, the credits that people get there. So I don't know what you can do about that. But it's like everyone seems to be looking for this magic bullet of economic development, and I'm trying to have an open mind on it. I'd like to know what that vision is. As I said, I covered that. I mean, I never put my property in open space, so I pay, this is probably $1,000, $2,000 a year I could have been saving for the last 30 years that I haven't put in for it. I got a lot of ideas and a lot of questions, but I don't know if I can. Here's some of my other thoughts and concerns. As long as all the butters approve of a zoning change, and if there's a chance to have a hearing on it, I wonder how does this proposal advances the vision of the comprehensive plan. I'm looking to tie that in, looking to see what kinds of development and what the actual benefit to the town is going to be. I want to know what the target of the value we're shooting for. I want to know how much land is involved. I want to know what's wrong with the current zoning. Why isn't it successful? And as other people have said, a lot of it's already residential and wetlands. I think a parcel by parcel determination would be appropriate. We can come up with some creative things like possibly reducing the tangible property tax rate, because it's like every city and town is a vulture. That's where they put the state law in restricting what you can tax the solar farms. You could do away with, I don't know if you can do away with it, it's probably required by the state, but you could make it the same as the residential and commercial and promote that your tangible property taxes are less enforced and might give people a reason to come here. There's already means in the regulations to change zoning if someone wants to go through that process. I even came up with an idea, and I don't think it would fly, whether we need to develop a foster economic development authority, or we're going to condemn land, purchase land, set up funds to buy and consolidate properties and market them for specific purposes. And this is kind of disjointed. I had 3 papers that kind of combined into one. But I mean, I have this question: why does anyone want to go to Foster to open a business? Because there's no infrastructure, there's no advantages to doing so. I have ideas for economic projects, like we could take that. I don't think that Turnquist place is operating now, is it? I mean, we could acquire that and request proposals to develop a wood pellet plant, for one thing. That would tie into all of the forestry management and give people incentive to harvest wood. We could do, like, they come from Maine originally, and they have another mode of transportation in the winter, snowmobiles. Well, what do we have? We've got land trust property, we've got rural properties. We could come up with a horse trail system, hiking trails. We could set up farms with lodging and room for horses and dining. Going back to one of the things I wanted to do a long time ago with biomass is to build a biomass energy generator. Again, you harvest the local products. You could even, and this is way out there, but I mean, you could build a generator that would be big enough to power Foster. I'm sure it would probably be not affordable, but and then when the property, if there's a civil disaster or emergency, we could be self-sufficient in power. These are wild ideas, but I'm just throwing them out there. We need to assess whether we have appropriate places for offices, laboratories, health centers. Do we want to build a small-scale sewage treatment? Do we want to tie into Danielson or Providence or whatever? I mean, if it might take something like that. Maybe we should build another golf course. I think we have a duty to preserve prime agricultural and forested land as much as possible, so it's going to be hard to balance all these concerns. That wasn't a joke.
That was a joke.
Well, I know you're hostile to the whole... No, let me finish.
Yeah, no, please finish.
You're hostile to the whole thing about Foster being rural and people want to preserve it. But that's what the majority of the people in Foster want. And I know you have your opinion, it's a different opinion, but it's just your opinion.
That's correct, and it's wrong.
So, well,
okay.
There you go.
So, in order, let me do this for you. Let me do a market analysis for what anyone has said, for what you said, or for what you said. If an MBA came in front of you, he'd say, could you tell me what your competitive advantage is?
Correct.
Okay. And I'm going to tell you something. You have none. You've lost most of your competitive advantages through... See, I'm always so negative, and nobody listens to me. But you see, I started with a positive. What's your competitive advantage? name any idea, and then go, what's our competitive advantage? To Barrington. See, you went to Barrington, Helen, believe me, this is not a criticism. You went to Barrington and asked them what they're doing. You went to Gloucester, you're going to say, what are you doing in Chepachet? You can't duplicate. So one, we're on our own. We're on our own from the state. We're on our own because our Republicans and Democrats fight amongst themselves. Back to competitive advantage. A business, I don't care what it is, a bike trail. Years ago I put in 6 bike trails to this town, Foster. Did it on my own, American Beautification had grants. All right, I got thrown off the planning board. All right, back to what's your competitive advantage? What's your competitive advantage to Valley Forge? In anything any of you say, what's your competitive
I
advantage?
can answer that question.
We probably shouldn't
Let him,
interrupt, yeah.
just let him do it. Everybody's just gonna speak and then we'll discuss.
Okay, so I'm gonna drop that because there'll be something to say about everything. Okay, how do you get to, and how do the people of Foster, why do we keep asking the people of Foster what they want? And they all say things, something. And the bottom line is, the market is not run by what people want. The market is run by what's in it for them to come to Foster. And when somebody approaches to Foster, and I have a different history, a completely different history, we turn them down. Okay? They see a competitive advantage. We say, holy shit, that's ugly. Or, we don't want that. We want a bank. CVS wants 5,000 people in a 5 square mile radius to build a CVS. Every major, whatever you're going to say, house has their rules of what they're going to put in your town, if it's going to come here. Bank, doesn't matter. In order to save, I said this years ago to Marge Borders, I can tell you, Marge Borders, Bob Boyden, doesn't matter. To save the rest, you were completely mistaken about my, and this is not personal, you're completely mistaken about my wishes for Foster. I want to keep Foster more rural than the rest of you. To keep it what it is, you have to give up a piece to save the rest. If we don't come to that conclusion of what we're going to give up, what's going to end up happening because of market forces, people are going to sell their properties that are in farm and forest when the 20 years is up, and you're going to get housing. Okay, so you must give up a piece to save the rest. Now, I said this 32 years ago. All right? I live in the second oldest house in the town. I don't think I know as much as Helen, but I know a hell of a lot about the history of this community, and I've studied it. My fields are where Washington and Rochambeau camped to relieve Newport. Okay, so I didn't buy that house by accident. I looked at 200 houses outside the 495 Beltway and moved to Foster for that house and what you want. Okay? But, you see, everybody's pretending this town is something that isn't. And this is a business. And in a business, you need one of two things. You need profit. And we don't have any profit, I can assure you that. And or you need cash flow. And our cash flow is shrinking all the time. If you can't buy a highway truck in 3 years, I'm not sure you got a lot of cash flow. So, I'm going to say this very quickly. Market forces, what's your competitive advantage? None of your ideas are bad. None of your ideas are bad. Okay? and you must give up a piece to save the rest. Okay? This planning board, that council, have to decide what you want, because if you keep asking the people in this community what they want, every 7 years there's a turnover. The people that come in want to keep it rural, and then they leave. And the next people come in and want to keep it rural. But eventually, and truthfully, I've said this twice now, the council have heard me, the town is going backwards. While Sedgwick and Gloucester move forward, the town of Foster moves backwards, trying to hold itself to some place it never was. As far as, I wanted bike trails, okay? As far as bike trails, hiking trails, horses, bread and breakfast, any of the things you said, they're not going to do a goddamn thing for this town. Now, about finances, Rick, you're mistaken again. When I talk about industry or economic development, I'm not talking about, in essence, tax relief. I'm talking about slowing the rate of growth of taxes. I'm talking, two, about the availability to have money to build the kind of things we want. Maybe an elderly center, maybe a youth center, maybe a real complex of athletics, like Situate has. And I'm going to point out one last thing to you. If we keep going backwards financially, I asked, who in the town financial meeting, 3 or 4 of you were there, I asked, what are we proud of? What we're proud of at this point is our regional schools. Okay, paying school, all right? Every meeting I've been to in the last 2 or 3 months, people from the town council have mentioned the problem is the schools. So you're going to start to attack the one thing you're proud of. Now let me point out to you, I once saw Michael Barnes, and I said, Mike, you charged 3.something%, why did it go up? He goes, one, the state increased my pension, what do you call it? When I was on the school committee, it was 7%, it's now 17%. 17 cents of every dollar you pay for schools goes to the state. They're robbing from you because they didn't use the pension money. Two, they cut, once again, the regional subsidy for busing, which was sacrosanct, or whatever the word is, why we became a region. And they're cutting our busing, what do you call it? 3, they cut the regional reimbursement per student. So if the state keeps attacking your schools on one side, and you're attacking your schools on the other side, don't be so sure how quick your schools are going to go down. I'll leave you with this last thought. How can Massachusetts run its towns on Proposition 2.5, which is a 2.5% increase per year, and the towns of Rhode Island can't run themselves on a 4% prop increase? Market forces, competitive advantage, and I don't know what the other thing says, but anybody that thinks that I don't want to keep Foster rural,
You have to give up something to have.
say thank you, Ellen. All right? And anybody that thinks I'm against keeping Foster rural has no idea who I am or what I am. So you can keep thinking that I'm something I'm not. And I'm not going to waste too much more time for this town. This has been 30 years of fighting everybody and their mother.
Thank you. Jeff, you give your ideas, your thoughts?
Got a few.
That's what we're here for.
Before I was on the board, I made a mistake of saying, it wasn't a mistake, it was a mistake that I said it. And that is that this town doesn't have a plan.
Doesn't
We don't.
have a plan.
So I said, this town does not have a plan. Because we don't. We don't know where we're going. We had an applicant here, I think everybody will know who it is, but he was before this board and the zoning board 6 times. we ran that man ragged to build the first house, the first building that was built on Route 6 in 32 years. And I say 32 years because that's only as far back as I went. 32 years. That's not the sign of a healthy town. Okay? I'm not counting Foster Fee. I just, I don't know what's going to happen with that building. But 32 years before somebody built something in this town as a business. We can all sit here and say, we don't want business, or we do want business. But this board hasn't approved any business except that one in 32 years. Now, you gotta understand how unhealthy that is. All right? We don't have a plan. I'm looking at this, I had seen this before, although I read the rest of the old comprehensive plan. 3 of the 4 major sawmills in Rhode Island are located in Foster. They have the Turnquist Lumber Company, Windsor Forest Products, and House of Wood Products. They're all gone.
No, houses still work.
Oh, is
Yeah.
Well, Turnquist. One of the reasons they couldn't sell lumber is because it has to be kiln dried. They can't sell pallets anymore that aren't kiln dried. There's no kiln. All right? I don't know what was, but what is, and we're all building these solar panel places. Why can't one of them power a kiln? Maybe as a state co-op. There's plenty of sawmills around, even if the ones we haven't closed. All right? Why can't we do that? Why isn't that something that we bring forth? We power the heat at Pontigansett with wood chips. And I'm told they're imported from like Idaho. Look outside. We have more trees than anybody in this state. Why are we buying these things from Idaho? There is a market for what we have. And I know this is really going to set somebody off, but there's 2 natural products in the town of Foster that we have more of than anybody. And that's rocks and trees. And like it or not, rocks are a commodity to be sold in one way, shape, or form. We just turned down a guy to process rocks and sell them, even if it was temporary. He's been in public as saying he would have given us X number of dollars, either, I don't know how, Gordon maybe hung out. Is it cubic yard or a ton?
Oh.
Rocks, ton is ton, okay. DEM says he had 800,000 yards, or tons, to get rid of. If he had started getting rid of them, that's instant gratification to the town of Foster. $1 a yard. If he did half of it one year and half of it the next, that's $400,000 a year. And we said no. You gotta be nuts. Frankly, you really have to be nuts to turn that down. And then he's done it in 2 years, and he moves it over to Route 101, and I've seen that property. That guy's going to, this Quahog Solar, he's going to have more rocks than St. Croix does. He's going to have hundreds of thousands of yards. And by the way, they proposed a rock crusher for him here the other night, and nobody said a word to him. After giving that other applicant miles of grief, they said they didn't say a word.
That's incorrect, but you're gonna...
I was here. I didn't hear one thing against him processing rocks. And at the end, he said, we haven't decided whether we're going to process them or what was the other thing he was going to do? Sell them.
No, use them for his road.
Yeah, I use them for his roads. He's not going to use all of that tonnage for his roads.
Well, what are your ideas for businesses?
My idea is that we have natural resources that we should be taking advantage of. Okay? Nobody's going to bring a business to this town the way things are. We've raised taxes for 6 years, 6 times in a row. We're probably going to do it at least 5 more, and the 5 more is predicating on us getting something tomorrow, which ain't going to happen. But if it did, that's another 5 years of taxes. If you're a man that has a business and you want to open it up somewhere, are you going to totally ignore the fact that Foster's raised taxes or will raise taxes for 11 straight years? You got to do something. You got to start somewhere. I I'm not against the people who don't want heavy industry here. But whatever you build here is going to involve moving rocks. It's going to involve cutting down trees. And we're ignoring that that's a natural resource that we can take advantage of. We're just ignoring it. We're pretending it doesn't exist because we have somebody that says we want to keep Foster rural and not cut down one tree. Well, I'm sorry, but I've read the comprehensive plan, no offense to anybody, but nobody here has the same idea of rural as the next person next to them. They all have a different idea of what rural is. And everybody thinks I make that up. Start asking around, okay? Rural is two different definitions. It's 5-acre minimum house lots with McMansions, or it's a chicken farm running truckloads of chicken manure down the roads. The two don't mix. The new ones coming in are going to say, we don't want that chicken stuff coming down the road because it stinks. And they're going to complain about it. And they're going to complain so much that eventually it's going to go away. Cow manure spread on the lawns, people use it for fertilizer because it works. But the next door neighbor isn't going to like it because it stinks. Okay, you can't have two different definitions of rural because they have to come before the board and get the same one every time. So another thing that I think we ought to do is establish what rural means and decide what we want equals rural. And if we're not going to do that, then we need to remove that from the comprehensive plan because it's not right. You can't treat one person different than the other. The other thing, I'm looking at this. It says 1,131 large and small businesses in Foster. There may be. I have a business in Foster. You know what I contribute to the town? Nothing. They only tax me on my computers and my desks. That's all. That's not going to net this town anything. It's not going to help pay the bills. We need something that's going to help pay the bills. Rationally and realistically. We don't have that. And we've lost, I don't know, I've counted various ways, but 26 businesses. I don't know who the other ones are, but it seems to me they're mostly people who run businesses out of their home. Which means that you're taxing them on the residents, and that's all you're getting from them too. They just happen to be working out of Foster. Again, nothing contributed to the town. Turnquist Lumber was the largest at the time, largest employer in town. It says he had 18 employees. They're gone. We should have done something about that. We should have gone to the Rhode Island Department of Economic Development and suggested that they find something for us to use this lumber for. We haven't. I don't know if there's any grants. I don't know if the Department of Economic Development gives cares about Foster. Nobody's asked. Nobody has asked. Nobody's looked for grants. Okay? I'm sorry. I don't know if they look for grants. Honestly, I shouldn't have said that.
You've been here 2 weeks. Have you getting grants?
Well, you're obviously failing your job.
We have done it.
But none of the grants help the town out of this economic mess that we're in. Okay? We need something that's going to make the town move. Or pay a bill. All right? We can all talk about saving the rural character. But if we head toward bankruptcy, and some receiver comes in here like they did Central Fall, you could probably say goodbye. They're going to sell some assets. They're going to spend money. They're going to make sure that we're not going to have a senior tax freeze anymore. Because we can't afford it. Now, I'm not trying to say all this is going to happen. But I'm trying to say that we ought to be looking to make sure it doesn't.
What's your plan for Route 6?
Clean it up. Jesus, you need to clean up Route 6. Honestly, the man's been saying this for 5 or 6 years. The time I've known.
Okay,
He's
let him-
absolutely right.
let him-
Well, he asked me to hold.
All right. Can I get a shot at this?
Yeah.
Yes.
What the hell?
You all set, Jeff?
Yeah, but
These are people that are frustrated just the way the town's run, that have been here a long time. I give you a quick background, seeing that you gave a background. I'm recently retired, owned a number of businesses, 6 or 7 of them, still have a couple going now. My payroll was bigger than the town of Foster's. So when it comes to business, I think I know what I'm talking about. One of the things in business is, recently I have a business in Smithfield, that does business in Gloucester and Smithfield, I have to go for a BCI check to sell lemonade. My boys have to go for, that work for me, have to go for BCI checks to work in those towns, okay? I have to go in front of the town council every year to renew my license, which we do here, but when I originally went there to get a license, I have to do that. I've been doing it for 30 years there. I recently seen a guy open up a business on Route 6 here, and there's nothing but junk cars in the front of the place with a sign. Why hasn't that person been in front of a planning board, or a zoning board, or the town council to let us know what his business plan is? So someone can say, you can only put 10 junk cars there, not 50 junk cars. And the answer I always get in Forster by people in this room, well, you're zoned for that, you can do whatever you want. Okay, my first business was zoned C5 in Cranston, which is commercial, industrial, okay. I didn't go open up my business the way I wanted to open up my business. I had to go in front of the town council, and I had to go in front of the zoning board and the planning board to let them know the business that I was gonna put into that particular area that was zoned C5. So those are the things we don't do here in Forster. The second thing here,
Sorry, Anthony, you have to.
I'll send you a letter after what I got. Okay.
What is it that you want people to,
No,
who are
just-
opening
I'll
businesses?
I'll get there. First I'm telling you the problems,
Okay.
okay? And then I'm gonna tell you how to fix it, okay? Doing those things would fix it in this town. You can't just have someone open up a business and say, because I'm zoned for that, and just open it up any way he wants, which we allow them to do here in this town. That's number one. Number two, what you really need to do is have a blight ordinance on Route 6. I blame this town, this board here, I wasn't on it, and I don't know how many were on it, for contributing to the blight ordinance, to the blight that's on Route 6. Allowing that solar farm without real restrictions, okay, don't raise your eyebrows, Ellen. Okay, allowing the next,
Infringing.
okay,
That's your right.
allowing the other solar farm coming in that's gonna be just as bad as this one that's going on, okay? That does not help, okay, our rural character that everybody wants to keep here, that everybody keeps mentioning. And the tax bases that those solar farms are bringing in are less than my McMansion on my property, okay? The other thing is we allow people to get away with things. There are broken down buildings on Route 6. I, as a business owner, came here with the intentions 15 years ago, knowing that when I lived in Gloucester, that the next place to move up is going to be Forster, because there's no more land and no place else to move. In 15 years being here, I've just seen it decay on Route 6, and not one thing been done on Route 6 to change it, to make it better. I believe a lot of people don't come up this end of Route 6 and really know what it looks like on that end of Route 6, okay? The traffic from Connecticut, now, everybody basing this, there's a couple ideas you have, okay, tourism, I don't know where they're gonna go around here to see anything, okay?
My house.
You two guys had a couple of good ideas with the conservation land there. I didn't realize how much land we really do have, and the snowmobile trails and biking trails. Well, I don't know if the people around there want to get snowmobiles flying around there, but if we had some sort of horses, okay, and they just pay a fee in the town of Forster to get a pass or a ticket, or a little campground for a horse trail. I mean, there's a lot of horses here, but a lot of people don't have places to ride them. Okay, and that is as cool as all hell, and if it costs them $10 to go to the town hall first to buy a pass, like a beach pass when you're down the beach to go on the beach, that's things that do work. But as far as the business and the zoning on Route 6 that I see, me myself, first you have to clean up Route 6. From what I understand is the person we hired to clean up Route 6 is no longer with us. That zoning guy that's supposed to be enforcer. The guy we hired part-time. Huh? I don't know.
I haven't heard that.
I don't know where you're hearing that rumor.
Really? Must have been a rumor. I heard he quit. That was a rumor I heard. If he did, okay, it's just another one bites the
I
dust
talked
if
to
he
Sue
didn't.
Dillon, she didn't know about it.
What's that?
No, it's-
No.
Okay, whatever. But we need him to enforce and find people to step up and clean up, then maybe we can have like a lot of towns do. If a guy's gonna invest money in his business to straighten it out and clean it up and stuff, maybe we can give him a hold on his taxes for a couple of years or something like that. If he's gonna invest in his property, we reimburse him something like that, okay? A lot of towns do that. There's a name for it, I don't remember what it is.
We already got that.
What is it?
Tax incentive, wherever it's been applied, we already have it enforced.
No, you go to tax incentive if a guy's gonna expand. I'm
No,
talking
like
about cleaning
facade,
up.
like facade grant, like fixing
Okay,
up, yeah.
only one person expanded in this town, him, nobody else, okay? So, that's there, somebody can do that, okay, but if somebody wants to clean up, we have buildings here that are closed down and roofs falling in that are a hazard, that should be condemned, but they're friends to the right people, so we can't do any of that stuff, okay? You can take some of this stuff, like, who mentioned that? I don't know if it was you, Richard, or it might have been you, condemnation and eminent domain, and take it over. There are programs with the state, if someone's not gonna develop their business, that there is a program in the state, and we had a town solicitor that brought it to a town council president, and then they dropped the ball. There are programs with the state that will help do things of that nature, okay, on some of these properties in town that are broken down. The other thing with the zoning change I see, and I'm only using this for an example, there are a lot of houses, residents on Route 6, that I bet you the people would sell their house and move out and go somewhere else, because when they bought them, Route 6 probably wasn't like it is now, and now it being so crazy, but they would only be able to sell that as a residential home. If they had the opportunity to sell that as a commercial property or a residential property, they would find more buyers. I'm looking at that red, white, and blue house, because like I said, I drive up and down Route 6 every day, and that's a pretty level piece of property, and it's pretty flat. I believe that they foreclosed on that property, didn't they?
Yeah.
And it's closed, there's like 13 acres
They
there.
foreclosed, and it went through the foreclosure process, was turned over, but kicked it back to the bank that had taken care of it, because they had done a very good job taking care of it.
Okay, perfect example though. If that was sold as a commercial piece of property, or had the opportunity to sell it as a commercial piece of property, there's already septics in there, there's already wells in there, and there's 13 acres of flat property. Just gives another opportunity to put businesses in Route 6. And the thing that I keep, and to go towards you, Richard, with the rural stuff, if we go, I know everybody goes there because it's the only place you can buy a gallon of milk or something, is up Route 6 into the Brooklyn-Danielson area right there, where the car dealerships are and so forth. Well, that strip is not rural. That's pretty commercial, where Walmart is and everything. But if you drive just on the outside of that Route 6, it turns pretty rural and pretty nice real fast. No one's trying, I'm not trying to change the world, that's why I moved there, I got enough property, and I'm the one that will be affected the most out of Route 6, because my property abuts Route 6, okay? My thing is, that Route 6 corridor can be commercial, and it doesn't affect anything to do with our rural character, because the rural character is outside of that Route 6 corridor,
So what you're saying is give up a piece to save the rest.
pretty much.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That Route 6 corridor. Now, on 102 and 101, if you maintain and follow what Coventry does down there, on that end of 102, there are some industrial buildings and $200,000-300,000 houses right next door to each other. But they allow the buildings to be put up in such a certain way that it doesn't take away from the aesthetics of somebody that's going to build a house. We just throw it against the wall and hope it sticks. So the feelings are going to get hurt. You have to clean up Route 6, okay? It just has to be cleaned up. No one's going to entertain anything on Route 6 unless it's cleaned up. Why would somebody spend an enormous amount of money to look at dirt piles and dumpsters and things of that nature? I just don't get it. I just don't see anybody coming to this town and investing in it, doing it that way. What's that? You would?
I just dropped $400,000 into a piece of property in the last 5 years.
That's great.
Okay,
That's great. I don't know how many more of those businesses are gonna come on, because those might work. But then again, that's, I've had enough now. I'm done. I'm done. There were a couple of good ideas. I honestly, I think when you go Patchogue Forest, I've been in there, they got horse trails in there, and they have areas that open up and people bring in their trailers.
We do here too on the land trust property. It's allowed, it's used for horseback riding already.
Do we have trails there?
Yes,
Do we have places where they can pull in a
Yes.
trailer and stuff like that?
yes.
Where am I? Where have I?
Kennedy Road, the Schuman property.
but the question is, okay,
Does anybody know?
how does that's the rural piece. The financial piece is
Yes, that has nothing-
different
that has nothing-
than the rural.
That has nothing, well, you went off on a tangent on totally something
Yeah.
else too,
You're right.
okay?
Let Anthony continue.
The thing is the zoning on changing on Route 6. I propose that the zoning, when you get maps, and you can look at a big piece of property, okay? And we can look at it and say, all right, that's zoned agricultural residential, and they have 40 acres or 20 acres, or give them a dual zoning, so that and when the landowner knows that, they know they can probably go sell it to somebody who wants to do something on it, versus somebody who wants to buy a house and live there. I personally don't think Route 6 is rural. I wouldn't buy a house on Route 6 and say I live in Borough Foster. You know what I mean? Because it just isn't the rural character of Foster. You got tractor trailers come up and down that road. I mean, it just doesn't make it. That should be our business zone. That's where we should be able to go up and eat. We should be able to go to the bank. We should be able to do things that we want. But I wouldn't spend 10 cents the way it looks right now. Okay? There's some signs that need to be taken out. We need to condemn some things. We need to start finding some people. You want income? You start finding them to do things. The solicitor would know that. I mean, there are some violations.
Yes, and I was going to mention that you had mentioned about condemning and eminent domain. There are 2 or 3 other cities in Rhode Island that have developed this, and well, they have a municipal court or housing court, but they've developed a receivership program through their ordinances, and you know, it's been approved, but Providence will go in and take over a piece of property if the landowner, and a lot of times it's banks, but if it is essentially a blighted property, they'll come in, they'll take it over, they'll appoint a receiver. That receiver will come in, hire people, fix it up, sell it, give the town back all their, you know, tax money and whatever else. And the landowner, in order to, would either A, have to come and say, I'm going to fix this within X amount of time. If they don't, you take it from them. And it's something that's done in the town. We don't have a municipal court or a housing court, but it might be something we still could do via an ordinance, but something worth looking into. But yeah, if that threat is there, people, you know, you don't want to lose land that you own.
It's the finance piece.
And that doesn't, you know, if you have some program like that, the receiver and these companies who are interested in buying property, they front all the money, not the town. The town's not putting up anything.
Correct.
But you have a nice building when it's done.
Correct. So there are ways.
Yes.
We should know,
Providence has one, Warwick has one, if anybody is interested in looking. Warwick's is fairly new.
I've been in the foreclosure business for way too many years, trust me.
Yeah, you know about this stuff.
There's 45 current foreclosures in Foster. In some stage or the other. Some of these properties that we go to, I mean, they're a mess, they're wrecked. I mean, some of them are you know, the yard's full of trash and debris, and I mean, I'm pulling over 120 yards out of a 3-bedroom house that was occupied by a 92-year-old woman. It's just depressing. But my point to the town is that the only way you can get those cleaned up is if we have somebody like our zoning official send something to the bank that says, we're going to fine you if you don't clean this mess up. Because if they don't hear from you, they're not gonna do it. There's 12 million foreclosures, they're spending a ton of money, and they're not gonna spend nothing unless we tell them to. But the banks will, in order to avoid any litigation, will clean up these properties. I'm not saying that the 50 houses will help, maybe only a few of them are real bad, but we should clean up, you know, we should get the ones cleaned up that we can. And that's not gonna cost anybody anything, except the bank.
How does someone open up a business in Forest, just like that guy did at the top of the road on Route 6?
Did you want to speak before?
Oh, I'm sorry, Joe, that's right, we went right back to the middle, go ahead. buddy.
I just was letting everybody speak first. I really, personally, I think, I think I agree with a lot of the comments from everybody. As far as, concentrating on Route 6 at this point, I think that's important. That's our business area. And I think, like Anthony said, that, if I bought property on Route 6 as an AR or a house on Route 6, I would expect that there would always be a possibility of a business next to me. So if our business owners did expand into those areas, it wouldn't be a big surprise to somebody who would think, it's not like you're an AR zone, it's not, and then also they're putting businesses out there. So I think that's a good place to start. I think we really should, review our use table and look at, if there's anything in there that's causing people not to come to the town, and see what, is a special use and maybe shouldn't be, and some things probably should stay as special uses. The dimensional regulations should be looked at. Then we should really look at what types of business would work in this town, because, it's tough. You're gonna open a store or a restaurant, and you're gonna attract enough people in this town.
That's back to the
No,
market. You can't
talking.
demand the
It's my
market.
turn to speak, Mr.
You're right, and
I
so-
let you speak, and I speak. I think we need to know what's gonna work in the town and what we can attract here that'll work. Maybe, the commercial type of industrial things as far as, businesses, bigger businesses coming in and having offices here or something might work. But I think the lack of water and sewer in this town is a really big problem for any type of business that, it would have to use those type of things, because to have a well and septic system to run a restaurant or a store, is, just so costly. It's cost prohibitive to open that type of business. But, how can we fix it is what we're gonna look at. But I think, what Anthony was looking at as far as Route 6 and cleaning it up, I think, we have a lot of ordinances in this town that aren't enforced. And I think, if we enforce some of our current zoning, some of these issues that we have up there can be remedied without additional ordinances, but, there is a remedy there.
Just take a look at that, go ahead, keep going, Joe.
And so I think, we should look at, trying to get our officials to, enforce what's in place. Now, the town council had sent me a letter, and they were interested in.
Can you just wait until Joe's done?
That's all right, I don't
That's
matter.
rude.
They just wanted to show you something, you guys so you understand.
But they were, looking at, how GBM, as Mike was mentioning in the beginning, what's working up there, what businesses are successful, which ones aren't. We've lost some businesses. Is it because of the zoning? Is it because of the type of business or the way the business was run, or other factors, I know we've lost a few businesses due to people, passing away or just getting older and, deciding to not do it anymore. And then there's problems with landlords and, the businesses aren't, acceptable to the people that try to go in there and it's not working out for them, and it's not the business that isn't successful, it's where they are, and, the buildings aren't kept up to standards that they need to keep their business running. So there's a lot of issues that cause, businesses to leave the town. I don't think it's just zoning. But you know, maybe we can look at, you know, possibly having some type of a questionnaire go out to the business owners in town and see what works for them, what doesn't work for them, you know, and what we can do to help them and bring incentives, you know. But, you know, foot traffic's always a big thing in Foster, so the types of businesses that are gonna work in here probably aren't types of businesses like banks and that type of thing, because, I mean, the banks are closing in Situate, they're closing in towns around us all the time. Bank of America and Fleet, and they all moved out, you know, now there's credit unions. But it's tough when you don't have enough people to put a branch in a small town. Certain things aren't gonna work in there. I think there was a lot of good ideas, and I think, you know, the maps are very important, and expanding our entire Route 6 up to the possibility of commercial like that.
That picture I showed you, that is in Rehoboth. That is behind one of the biggest trucking companies.
In front of.
Yeah, I'm sorry, behind that, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Behind that fence, behind that fence like that, is one of the biggest trucking companies I do business with. Across the street from it, up to $1 million homes in cul-de-sacs, up and down the road, rural with horse farms and so forth. And the town of Rehoboth gave this guy the restrictions and told him what to do, so forth and so on. And that's where that is. You would never know that that's behind that fence. And some of these trucks are kind of big. They have restrictions when they can leave and when they can come in, so they don't mess up the neighborhood. But you drive by, you would not know what's behind there. And the guy has a beautiful garage they're building. So you could coexist, okay, residential with commercial and stuff like that. You had made a statement, people moved on Route 6, okay, in an AR zone and not expect a business or a building next to it, okay? Well, even if they didn't expect it, but when they come in front of us, we should have enough capabilities and restrictions in, not restrictions, what am I looking for?
Ordinances.
Yeah, or to make it fall into place like they did in Gloucester and Chepatchit, okay? You can make a Dunkin' Donuts look like an old schoolhouse if you had to, if they wanted to come in. Now, the wetlands and sewers and all of that, the Citizens building they're doing on 295, their parking lot that they have in the front there between the clock, there was a pond right there. It's still running underneath it, okay? So if someone wants to do something, it can be done, okay? Water tables, yeah, they're pretty big and pretty high, but I'm sure if some company wanted to come in here that was big enough and there was 100 acres that they wanted to put a campus on, okay, that's available to them, they could figure out.
The North Attleboro Mall is built on a swamp, all right? And Dukakis did it. I tried to ask the planner a question before and it got left off, okay? Working only on Route 6 is a limited approach, okay? The idea that there could be possibilities on Route 101 or Route 102, and specifically by my house on 102, need to be looked at. And I'm going to say something that's so crazy here. I have a master's in business administration. So when I talk about market forces, and when I talk about what's your competitive advantage, and then somebody says what we would want, what we think will work here, we have no frigging idea, okay? The market will demand, okay, what works here. Then it's up to, Jeff got crazy, Anthony got upset, then it's up to our job to approve it, okay? So I said 3 things, I'm going to say them again. What's our competitive advantage? What are the market forces? And give up a piece to save the rest. Whether it's on 102 by my house, that's against what I want, okay? But it's for the town. And asking other people what they want, you're gonna end up in the same damn place, because I remember a thing that went on a while ago. Remember you sent that? It came back, everybody wanted what we had. Okay? So if you send them a questionnaire, you're gonna hear exactly what you have. And a questionnaire, if you get a 10% return on a questionnaire, that's a master's study significant result. And the only people that answer a market survey are people that either want it, depending on how you wrote it, or don't want it. So that's the craziest thing I ever heard. So if you have a master's degree in education, Helen, I'm assuming you do, and if you have a master's degree in business, you understand the statistical probabilities. If I come here and say market forces, and other people start talking about, so let me end. Let's do one thing. Draw a line on a piece of paper. Rural, economic. Divide them out. Don't work on Route 6. Divide out what's economic and what's to keep us rural. And let's work on the parts we're supposed to work on. The rural stuff is going to take care of itself. And it's the land trust, the horse trails, the whatever, okay? Or don't follow my request or my advice. It gets crazy coming to these things.
I want to speak on something. I think it's pretty, interesting, because what Anthony said is what this board has always tried to do, and we always wanted to see, things cleaned up, and unfortunately, when,
But you guys have been here longer, how come it hasn't
Listen.
been cleaned up?
would you let me speak? What happens is, the planning board has no authority to enforce anything we do. We can pass, recommend to the council to pass ordinances, and they can pass the greatest ordinance in the world. And if our zoning officials don't enforce them, we really have no recourse.
They work for the council.
Right, we don't have the authority. We can give them the greatest plan in the world, but once it leaves this table, unfortunately, we really have limited ability to follow up on anything. The zoning board has authority over a violation of the zoning, if the zoning official brings it to them. But,
Starts here.
we can, but once it leaves there, we don't have authority to,
So we have to blame the town council.
No, you gotta create it here first before you can say we have no authority.
Right, but there are many things, like Anthony mentioned, that are there, and there's businesses that aren't following zoning ordinances, and it's not enforced already.
No,
And
what?
if you add more, and it's still not enforced, it's not gonna improve it. And we all wanna see that, there's things up there that we don't like, and on this board before me, there's things that came out, and like you say, it's who it's happened in the past, and I'm sure it's true. And I've seen it with my own eyes before I was on any board and anything in this town. I've seen it for the last 30 years in this town, how things work. Things just aren't, there's no enforcement. We have a lot of part-time, we don't put our money where we need it. We need
Full-time planner and a
full-time building.
and a full-time
Right.
building.
Right, and I pushed that to the council for
And I have for years, so there we go.
as long as I've been involved
So
with the
there we
town.
go.
And everybody, we can't afford it, but, we don't spend our money smart sometimes.
Joe, you're right.
And.
There's council right here.
And I was very surprised at that. I agree with a lot of what, 90%, probably almost all of what you had to say. I think it goes against what the businessmen in this town probably want when you start talking about
Too bad for
ordinances
them.
and stuff, but,
It's not gonna fix it.
The town is not built for
And I agree with you,
businessmen who
what
are
you
taking
do.
advantage of the
And
town.
see, what you say about what you had to do in other towns with your businesses is what the businessmen in this town complain about. That they have to go before and get these
Too bad.
licenses and do these things. But that's what, they don't want, so it's a funny thing.
I'll let you jump on it, because he's on this question, but let me jump in front of you, please. The complaint that I'm complaining about the business that opened up My friend owns the building. He rented it to the guy that's opening up this car lot and stuff. He complained to him, said, you can't have all these cars out here, because this guy owns 2 dealerships and a bunch of properties in Johnston and Smithfield and so forth. And the guy that opened up the business says, oh yeah, I went to town hall, they gave me the license, they said I'm zoned for that, I can go ahead and do it. Okay? He put up a sign, nobody's approval. He's got junks out there. Now, you're in a car business. If the car is uninspectable and you can't inspect the car, it's turned into a junk. He doesn't have a license to maintain the whole junk cars. They're not customers' cars. They're not inspected. So there's a number of junk cars that they're taking apart to fix other cars. So again, we have blight on Route 6 because somebody allowed him to go and do it.
Chelsea Trading Post truck, it's been there 15 years.
So he doesn't have a license?
I don't know. He says he has a license. He went into the town hall. They said, you're zoned for that. Here's your license. Thank you very well, and have a nice day.
I think they have to advertise.
But
I'm not sure.
the other thing about that one in particular is that he has no backyard. These are all out in front of God and everybody. They're all out in front. People are gonna be staring at them.
Joe,
As they come in with Foster.
I have to go, and I have a future agenda, if I may. Next meeting, I have a request to talk, I just want to present a new zone that I want to present to the town of Foster for discussion, no action, or anything, let everybody, a new zone,
Right,
okay?
okay, we're gonna be working on commercial zoning, and I think, I was gonna suggest that everybody, we got a few weeks here before our next meeting, because of the way the calendar fell. So if you've got ideas, you know, whatever they are, as far as they're off the wall, you think they're far-fetched, whatever, or you don't think they, you know, may ever happen, but just, if you get stuff, you know, written down and get it off to the,
I
to
can
the
already
planner.
give it to the planner.
And so she can send it out for review, so we can discuss things, so we, you know, everybody knows what we're gonna be talking about.
Hey,
It's a lot better.
I'm sorry, you said a new zone.
A brand new zone that doesn't exist in Foster, that's all I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice lady.
Mine is they're not good, they're not usual.
But the meeting is still.
So you guys, you know,
Excuse me.
Thank you.
the planner would like to see stuff, you know,
I
like
actually had my hand up.
to do.
He took
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
He did.
I jumped.
I know, he asked politely, but it's,
I jumped in, sorry, man.
it's all right. Something that-
Last week when we started this conversation, and it just kind of degenerated, you had said that we ought to try something, and we ought to do something and then try it out, see how it works for 6 months. Or you said we got to try it out, see how it works.
I'm sorry.
I'm kind of against that.
I'm so sorry. What was it that we were going to try out? and
We don't
see
know.
if it worked?
What were we trying out for 6 months?
When he said it, he was referring to maybe we ought to change, like somebody talked about dual zoning and someone else was talking about different kinds of zoning, and Joe, you had said, we should change something and see how it works for a while.
Well, I think, if you might have misunderstood my comment, since I said it, I just wanted to.
Okay, well.
To clarify,
my point
that
here-
what I was saying that when we were talking about commercial zoning, that we should really be concentrating on Route 6 first, because that's our commercial zone. You know, and if we can remedy the problems out there, and then look in places to expand it from there, I think, you know.
I think this is the hottest, Route 6 is the hottest one to fix. And I think if we can get through Route 6, 101 and 102 will be a whole lot easier to do
Yeah, I think.
at that time. I mean,
Right.
so it really, I mean, we can't get a meeting straight, let alone try to change 3 roads.
No.
So if, I agree with you. If we get Route 6 kind of like in line and we can come up with something, then the other 2 streets will come out.
Right, I think that's, yeah, because then I think the council's kind of pointing us that way, and I think, you know, it's something that's already in, you know, it's there, so it's just to try to remedy that.
Right, that's no problem.
Go ahead, John.
Well, my point was that whatever we do, whatever, it's just gonna take time.
Obviously.
So you're talking about a change just to some of the roads like 101. I don't understand 101, it's like the redheaded stepchild with Blue Foster. You know what I'm talking about?
The people up there love it though.
Yeah,
So nobody bothers them.
they're not following all this other stuff. But the point is that trying it out to see if it's successful, you could actually make a case in today's world that you might want to see how it takes over 5 years. instead
I
of-
don't think we meant it that way.
I don't think, yeah, I think Anthony understands, I'm not trying it up, I think this is where we should start with our,
Let's get Route 6 first.
right, let's work on our zoner notes there and get our ideas going and then see if we can expand it.
But can I ask for, on the agenda, put something on the agenda, start working on a blight ordinance, okay, get the ideas of what we consider.
Well, maybe we can like put this whole thing together.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, I mean, what, hand in hand, on the blight
Right.
ordinance, what we'd like to see, what we won't want to see, and what should be done, and what shouldn't be done.
Some of this,
And see what's already in place that, you know.
some of this doesn't have to be, we go after some of these businessmen who've been in town for 40 years. Some of this would be, why don't we have somebody have a conversation with them and see how they would feel about it anyway. I think that would be information to have before we,
Well, he's right, the rumors that are gonna come out of this room is
I'm
we're
sorry,
gonna,
you mean like the zoning officials should go and talk to the people and?
I actually, I heard the same thing. I heard the zoning official, that guy, Mark, whatever his name was leaving, or had left. So, but I had actually thought that maybe we ought to ask him if he'd come here and see what he's already done. I mean, he's been active for a while, and I just wanted to see where he's at. And maybe some of these people have indicated that they would be willing to clean up. And if they are, let's not go after somebody when we don't need to. But at the same time, let's try to make something happen.
And you're talking about Route 6 specifically?
Yeah, but it's just a small town, everybody knows everybody, we just go to them and ask them.
the rumors will stop right after, the minute the door slams right there, that we're trying to close down the old broken down businesses on Route 6. So those rumors are gonna stop, okay?
They already did.
Yeah, exactly, so, but what Jeff was saying is maybe if someone spoke to some of the people, maybe a town council member.
Or this guy, this Mark, just have him have a discussion with these people and see where they're at and where, tell them we're concerned and what we might be able to do if the guy sees fit to totally ignore us.
Maybe the plan.
Talk to somebody first.
Right, I don't think you guys have heard it.
Do we have a planning clerk?
No.
So you're all on your own then? Because you had mentioned that when you were in another town that you reached out to the different businesses in Charlestown.
Yes.
And, I mean, it's a different situation, but
Yeah.
the
How
the
successful
planning
is it?
department could do something similar, I don't think, that
We-
we should
we
just
got
all be walking
feedback.
around, asking questions to
It's
citizens, I don't know. But if we have something structured, type of questions to, have, make some phone calls and go and stop by. Problem with a lot of the businesses, the owners aren't always the ones that are running them. But maybe if she has would come up with some structured questions, then maybe there would be some process we can do that. Mike?
I'd like to suggest that the plan is set an agenda for the next discussion, because we've got a lot of good comments and a lot of important issues. And I would also suggest that based on her experience and knowledge, that she can prioritize that agenda and assign discussion times. So, again, I think tonight was really good because everybody got to say what they wanted to say. So by
So-
creating a good, solid agenda and following that agenda, we can continually build good information on a priority basis. I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
No, not at all.
And I think
It's
it's,
better than winging it.
yeah, I think it's very important that we start, focusing on the blight issue, the enforcement issues, because we don't have the power to do that. And before we begin any new, or initiate any new actions, we should have a good understanding of what the situation is now.
And then we send it to the people that are
Exactly.
supposed to be taking care of it. We're the planning board, we're supposed to make the plan, let's make the plan to go forward on what we need to do on Route 6 and how we're gonna do it, and then just give it to the people
Oh, it's gotta go to council.
and give it to them and see what they do with it. If they wanna drop the ball, if they wanna move forward.
Right, I didn't put that in a motion, but I think an agenda for these discussions prioritized and arranged by our planner, I think would be very helpful for all
So
of
is
us.
that a motion?
Yes.
I second it.
Well, it's,
I can just do, I
Yeah,
can
she
do.
can do it, but I think that's what happened tonight, I did kind of, we did discuss this earlier, we've been talking about how to proceed, because we weren't, working very well. And, Jennifer did suggest this format, and because we stuck to it, and, and we almost got off it, and we went around and did what she suggested, and I think it worked out very, very well, and I think, was surprised by a lot of the comments, or some of the comments,
You can probably do the same thing with
and it was
the
good.
blade ordinance.
It worked really good,
You can do the same thing with the blade ordinance, that I would recommend that some of you people that don't go up Route 6, make it all the way to the blinking light. Turn around in the broken down diner with the trucks parked there and all that other stuff, and go back down the other end of Route 6, and you'll see the things that really need to be taken care of. Because I honestly believe a lot of people don't really come up that end, and that's the first thing you see when you come over the line from Connecticut. Right next to the big sign that says, "Welcome to beautiful Rhode Island."
And that's why we have, 7 members on the planning board, so we have 7 different minds with 7 different ideas sometimes, but, if we come to a consensus to what's, what we all can agree on, I think it works well, and I think we made some progress tonight.
Works for me.
So at this time, I think we just look at future agenda items. I think we've got quite a bit to do with this. I think if we go to that next meeting, if there's nothing as far as applicants, we can continue on this path and try to make some progress on this, because we do have some stuff probably coming up in later meetings after that. It's going to take us some time. So we'll assume next meeting we'll continue on.
Jennifer, if you can come up with a plot map, or even a section of Route 6, start from Cucumber, and let's work down halfway. We don't need the overlays yet, but I mean, that does work that way. I mean, when we,
Like at least a parcel map.
See what the lots are.
just so you can see the size of the lot, what it is.
I agree with
it
that.
And Jennifer,
Is it possible to get full-size plat maps?
Yeah,
Like this.
Yeah, they have a copy that big of it?
yeah.
35
We
cents.
don't have a copy that.
I used to get copies of them all the time.
we,
Yeah, but it shrinks
Maybe
down.
we
They don't
did.
have it anymore?
I'm sorry, we.
I haven't got one in a few years, but I used to get full copies.
We did have maps.
All of Route
the
6.
whole of Route 6. We literally went property by property, thank you, Gordon, property by property to look and see, what was definitely residential. And, we weren't where we are now, which is looking for more commercial. We were just at a point of trying to identify what was definitely not commercial, that had a house built on it that wanted to be there, and making that, definitely residential, and then making the commercial things where people had commercial properties. That's all that we were doing at that
It's
point.
probably in the attic on the second
That's
shelf
what
in the corner. With all the
It
other
might be in
boxes.
the attic. So the
It's probably in the file
large
cabinet
printer-
that they cleaned out last week, and it's
It's in the
on its way to the
On
line.
those maps, would it say what the zone right now? Would on the map that you're talking about, would the 2 pieces of property, would it say if this one's AR?
I can mark them off, there's a list,
Okay.
and I
Yeah,
can
we
just say.
whatever's Sundanus and Pike,
Yeah,
basically.
because anything-
The lot sizes
That's where that intern comes in from the high school.
and how their zone, how their zone, yeah.
Probably
Yeah,
a
and
free
then
List,
$100
and
dollars.
their zone.
Or a college
I
intern.
know.
My son's interning for free working for an
For
attorney.
free, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Okay.
All right, did anybody else have anything for future agenda items? We should be all right. Did everybody